There is a strange moment that happens in almost every person's life, a moment when they realize they are buying something they don't actually need, not because it will improve their life, not because it will solve a problem, but because of what it says about them. Maybe it's the expensive watch, maybe it's the luxury car, maybe it's the designer clothes, maybe it's the larger house. The purchase feels personal, it feels like a reward, it feels deserved. But hidden beneath that feeling is a question that most people never consciously ask. How will other people see me if I own this? And that question has quietly shaped human behavior for thousands of years. Because long before social media existed, long before luxury brands existed, long before money itself existed, human beings cared deeply about status. In many ways, we still do. The desire to look successful isn't a modern invention. It's an ancient survival instinct wearing modern clothes. And understanding that instinct may explain why so many people spend years chasing a version of success that never seems to satisfy them. Most people believe their purchases are rational. They assume they buy things because they want them, because they like them, because they provide value. And sometimes that's true. A car gets you from one place to another. A house provides shelter. A phone helps you communicate. But if functionality were the only thing that mattered, nobody would spend 10 times more for a logo. Nobody would finance luxury cars they can barely afford. Nobody would upgrade perfectly functional possessions every few years. Clearly something else is happening, because people are not just buying products, they are buying signals. Signals that communicate wealth, signals that communicate taste, signals that communicate success, signals that communicate belonging. In other words, many purchases are less about utility and more about identity. A luxury watch doesn't simply tell time. A luxury watch tells a story. It says something about the person wearing it, or at least that's what people hope. This is where psychology becomes fascinating. Humans evolved in small tribes. For most of history, survival depended on social standing. Being respected mattered. Being accepted mattered. Being valued by the group mattered. Those with higher status often had better access to resources, opportunities, and influence. Status wasn't vanity. Status was survival. Our brains evolved in that environment. But while the world changed, our psychology didn't change nearly as fast. Today, survival no longer depends on impressing hundreds of people in a village. Yet many of our instincts still operate as if it does. The result is a modern world filled with status signals. Cars, clothes, homes, vacations, phones, even coffee shops. People constantly communicate information about themselves through what they consume. Most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. And that's where the hidden cost begins. Because status is unique. Unlike food or shelter, status has no finish line. There is always someone richer, always someone more successful, always someone with a bigger house, a newer car, a better vacation, a more impressive life. Status is relative, which means the moment everyone moves up, nobody actually gains an advantage. Imagine a stadium where one person stands to get a better view. Now they can see more clearly, but then everyone else stands too. Suddenly nobody has a better view. Everyone is simply more uncomfortable. This is exactly how status competition works. When one person upgrades, others feel pressure to keep up. When everyone upgrades, nobody gains much socially, yet everyone spends more. Economists sometimes call this a positional game, a competition where the value comes largely from being ahead of others rather than from the thing itself. And positional games are incredibly expensive. Consider luxury cars. Most cars today are remarkably capable. They can travel safely and comfortably, yet millions of people willingly spend enormous amounts of money to own vehicles that provide only marginal practical improvements. Why? Because the purchase isn't just about transportation, it's about social perception. The car becomes a message, a statement, a signal. The same pattern appears everywhere. People buy larger homes than they need, not because the extra space dramatically improves daily life, but because the house symbolizes success. People wear brands that communicate wealth, not because the fabric is radically better, but because the logo communicates something. The hidden transaction isn't between buyer and seller, it's between buyer and audience, and audiences have become larger than ever before. For most of history, people compared themselves to a few dozen individuals. Today, they compare themselves to millions. Social media transforms status competition into a global sport. Every scroll delivers new evidence that someone else is doing better. Someone else is earning more, traveling more, buying more, achieving more. At least that's how it appears. The problem is that people are comparing their reality to someone else's highlight reel, and highlight reels create distorted expectations. Nobody posts their anxiety. Nobody posts their debt. Nobody posts their financial stress. Nobody posts the monthly payments, they post the vacation, the car, the apartment, the success. The audience sees the reward but rarely sees the cost. This creates a dangerous illusion, the illusion that everyone else is thriving. And when people believe everyone else is thriving, they feel pressure to keep up, even if keeping up requires borrowing money, even if it requires sacrificing future security, even if it creates financial stress. This is why some of the wealthiest looking people are not actually wealthy. Their lifestyle is expensive, their image is expensive, their financial reality may be something entirely different. Meanwhile, some genuinely wealthy people appear surprisingly ordinary, because real wealth and visible wealth are not the same thing. Visible wealth is what people see, real wealth is what they don't. Visible wealth is the luxury car, real wealth is the investment account. Visible wealth is the designer wardrobe, real wealth is the financial freedom that nobody notices. Visible wealth attracts attention, real wealth creates options, and options are often far more valuable than attention. Imagine two people earning exactly the same income. One spends aggressively to project success, the other quietly invests and saves. For a few years, the first person appears more successful. They receive admiration, validation, recognition, but over time something interesting happens. The second person's assets begin producing opportunities. The first person's lifestyle begins producing obligations. One gains freedom, the other gains expenses, and eventually the difference becomes enormous. Because status purchases have a hidden cost that rarely appears on the price tag. The cost is not just the money spent, the other gains expenses, and eventually the difference becomes enormous. Because status purchases have a hidden cost that rarely appears on the price tag. The cost is not just the money spent, it's the future possibilities that money could have created. Every dollar spent today has an invisible twin, a future version of itself. A dollar invested can grow, a dollar saved can provide security, a dollar kept can create flexibility. When money is spent solely to impress others, those future possibilities disappear. Most people focus on what they are buying, very few think about what they are giving up. Economists call this opportunity cost. Psychologists might call it invisible sacrifice. Either way, it represents one of the most overlooked forces in personal finance, and it reveals something deeper about human nature. Many people believe they want wealth, but often what they truly want is social approval, respect, recognition, validation, the feeling of mattering. The problem is that purchases can only simulate those feelings temporarily. The satisfaction fades, the attention fades, the novelty fades, then the cycle begins again. Another upgrade, another purchase, another attempt to close a psychological gap that money was never designed to fill. Because the truth is that status behaves much like a horizon. No matter how far you travel, it remains in the distance. There is always another level, another comparison, another benchmark, another person who appears ahead. If self-worth depends on winning that race, the race never ends. And perhaps that's the deepest hidden cost of looking successful. It quietly changes the definition of success itself. Success stops being about freedom. It stops being about peace of mind. It stops being about living according to your own values. Instead, success becomes a performance, a show, an image designed for an audience. And performances are exhausting. They require constant maintenance, constant spending, constant comparison, constant proof. Real success may be far less visible. It may look like a smaller house and a larger investment account, a simpler car and fewer financial worries, less attention and more freedom. Because when you stop trying to look successful, something unexpected happens. You gain the ability to focus on actually becoming successful. And there is a profound difference between the two. One is built for other people's eyes. The other is built for your own future. The first demands constant spending. The second quietly compounds. The first creates admiration. The second creates freedom. And when all the noise disappears, freedom is usually worth far more than admiration. Because admiration depends on what others think. Freedom depends on what you control. And in the end, the wealthiest person in the room may not be the one who looks rich. It may be the one who no longer feels the need to.